Hello and welcome. My name is Andrew Stretch. I am the Senior Content Manager at TechRaptor.net, and with me today I have Zach Lim Eubank, the founder of HyperRPG and the Game Master or the Driver for Kollok. We're also joined by Bella, who you may know from Twitch as Yellowspoongirl. In this latest season of Kollok, Bella will be playing one of the passengers on the journey. Zach, tell us a little bit, what is Kollok for those who may not be aware?
It is an experimental, interactive live play. If it's easier to understand, we can say TTRPG, but I think if you go into watching it as a TTRPG, you might have the wrong expectations. It's more similar to, I think, live theater. We deal a lot with psychological horror and improvisational drama to try to create a very spooky and interactive tale that involves audience participation.
Okay, yeah. So, coming from Hyper RPG, if you could also kind of tell us a bit of the background of Hyper RPG and their involvement in the landscape that has become, live plays and online TTRPG streaming.
Awesome. So yeah, I got my start. I started up Geek and Sundry's live network back in like 2014 or 2015 now. It feels like forever. I don't remember the exact dates, but and I launched Critical Role, brought that to air, and in that process, we started working a lot on what excited us most, which was interactive storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
And given at the time that when I was running GNS's live stream, we were kind of beholden to needing a certain amount of numbers from Legendary Digital to keep things up and running. The overhead, is just extremely high. I wanted a little more freedom to experiment in this kind of realm, so I teamed up with Jordan Weissman, who is the creator of things like HeroClix and Shadowrun and BattleTech and stuff like that. And we launched Hyper RPG with the main idea of really thinking about interactivity as a form of narrative storytelling and how to create really interesting stories with audience involvement. And we just kind of kept going, and since then we've done stuff. We brought Power Rangers to Twitch and did the first official Power Rangers live play that is canon within the Power Rangers universe. We did a show for Valiant Comic Books that was an in-canon Valiant Comic Books TTRPG live play that directly tied into their upcoming comic book releases, and the characters that we had in our show are built with the back-end team of Valiant and Eric Heiserer, which was really, really cool. And we just are kind of always looking for ways to take this format of live play and think about, where can it go? How do we get it kind of in the eyes of people who enjoy television and make them realize there's like this other world of storytelling here where it's not like you're just watching your favorite TV show. You're interacting with it, and you're able to directly influence your favorite characters' actions and places they might go and danger that they might meet, and protect them from danger as well. If you really, really love those characters, want to make sure they don't get hurt, you can help influence the story in that way. And so that's always our goal, is just to make you as an audience member feel important and feel like you're a part of the world that we're telling stories in.
Okay. Yeah, no, I love the idea of being able to look at that character you like, and instead of just being stuck there with the popcorn screaming at the TV, don't go in to see what you can do to help out.
Yeah, now you could set up a character in our world, join our back-end metagame, and you could be communicating with one of the players at the table as a fellow Ascended member, hacking into our back-end and finding resources that might help them, and tell them, like, if you want to protect yourself, you can head over here. There's some armor in this building, a couple blocks down, or, things like that. Or you could be voting to push a certain danger further away from them.
So yeah, tell me a little bit more for that viewer, for who's going to be interested in watching this new season of Kollok. What does that interactivity look like for a home viewer?
So we've set up our own kind of app. You can go to hyperrpg.com/Kollok. If the app's not up, it'll be up by the release of the show. We'll probably launch it the day of,
Hmm.
so it doesn't get flooded beforehand. But you'll be able to link your Twitch account and your Discord account and create a unique character that has stats, that exists in this world and is one of the Ascended members, like Bella's character, one of
Hmm.
humanity's last children, born on November 12th, 1991. And you get to role play within that world with fellow viewers. And while we're traveling that world, we'll bring those characters into the show. And it's as easy as just going to our website and using the kind of web-based app that we've set up, where you'll be able to role play with fellow audience members, find little secrets that we've hidden within the app, set your like home location. So as our travelers are going through the country, they might go through the town that you set yourself up to live in, and then there's a chance that we'll interact with your NPC.
So I guess it sounds like it's really easy for the person viewing at home, but you as the game master building this world, how chaotic is it to try to plan a world and just to know 1 week I'm going to just like pluck this character
Yeah,
from the world?
it's very stressful, but uh it's also really fun. I mean, I think that um acting as if all of my best ideas would come from pre-thought, before we come into a session would be ridiculous. And a
Mm.
lot of stuff comes from the story as it's happening, the players and the audience, and where audience wants to drive things and the things they're doing in the metagame and things that they're pushing. Let me know as a storyteller what stuff's important, and that's why I love live storytelling. It makes me a better storyteller to get that immediate feedback and be able to see exactly what people are responding to, so there's always going to be people who don't like what you're doing. That's
Yeah.
impossible to get around. But being able to kind of adapt in real time to what people want and how they want to consume it helps us tell a story that we know will connect with more people. And so it's stressful, but it's also kind of a relief in some ways, because as I can see in real time if it's working.
Yeah.
And the most stressful part is when you realize it's not. You're thinking in the middle of a show like, oh no, I backed us into a corner. The audience is not jiving with this. I don't know how to get out. But luckily, we've built a lot of stuff in the world of Kollok where I can make those resets and continue the loop in another way.
Fantastic. So, talking about the story, this new season of Kollok will take place. I think it said 30 years
Mm-hmm.
after the original,
Yeah.
um, with Bella playing Sid, a new character. Can you tell us a little bit about what we should expect from this character coming into it?
Go for it, Bella. You got it.
So Sid is a very cool girl. She is very rough around the edges and kind of has a really hard past. Like growing up. Am I allowed to say this, Zach?
Yeah,
Or
go
like,
for it.
okay, okay. Um,
Anything that if anything extra gets said, we can cut that. That's no problem.
Okay.
okay, cool. So her parents were in the rebellion as well, which means that they were kind of higher ups, and being their daughter, they made me do a lot of spy missions. So my character is a spy, and even when she was really young, she was doing all these missions that were actually really fucked up and traumatizing. So things happen later down the line. That leads me to just kind of being a very lone wolf kind of person, like cabin in the woods. I don't want to have anything to do with either side of things, whether it's
Mhm.
the government or the rebellion. My character thinks it's all stupid and is kind of a degenerate, like likes to indulge in like cigarettes and drinking and drugs. And she also has an eye that was slashed in the past, and there's some cool stuff about it that will come out, that I don't want to say more of, but there's some stuff with that as well.
Yeah, yeah.
So expect cool, funky
Yeah,
powers
yeah,
coming out of Sid at a moment's notice.
Yeah, I
yeah.
think
She's a hard ass for sure.
something that's really fun for me. I think having been running tables for this long and running shows in this world for this long, we're always trying to think of ways of like, what's the kind of meta of a TTRPG and how do we twist it just a little bit to make it more
Mhm.
exciting for us? Because if it's exciting for us, it's probably exciting for the viewers too. Because people who watch these shows watch a lot of them, and you go through certain repetitive things. So instead of having a group that they all meet at a tavern and they come together and they go out on a journey, Instead, we're meeting a group who were all kind of child soldiers together and went through years of trauma together, and in a weird, unique way are being pulled back together, and they have to ask these questions of, do I even like these people? Do I want to be a part of this? Do I want to go on this journey? Why am I going on this journey? And bringing the history, not that's like outside of each other, but the history is each other itself. So we get to explore as an audience as players how we deal with that traumatic history that each of them went through together and have been distant from for many years.
So we'll definitely see some ripped bandages and some
that's
rediscovering of
yeah.
hidden trauma.
Yeah, lots of that. I mean, that's kind of Kollok to a T. It's just exploring trauma, and this season especially. I mean, we had to stop season 2 abruptly because of the pandemic, and rather than come back and just do a season 3, when I started talking to the original cast members, who is considered our legacy in this show, we decided we didn't want to come back and do a season 3. It was more, let's just kind of relaunch the show. We have a perfect opportunity in story that ties directly into it's kind of it's almost like season 1 and 2. Kollok 1991 was its own show. Now Kollok, set in real time present, is its own show, but it's built off of the past of the other one. And we kind of wanted to do that because we knew that we couldn't come back and just pretend like 2020 didn't happen. I mean, we were all pretty traumatized by 2020, and coming back and just acting as if like, okay, continue the story, didn't feel honest in the way that Kollok works, since it's always an exploration kind of what we're going through and how we're dealing with it. So we wanted to set up some new stakes and deal directly with what it's like to live through trauma at different ages, and that kind of generational trauma, and how we have a group who was born into this world, literally raised within it, and another who were all 18 to 19 years old when all this trauma happened. And how now are they different because of it? How differently do they react to the world around them as people who experienced it knowing a world before it, and people who knew nothing but that world?
Okay, so you talked about the legacy. Will we see those cast members returning in some way, or?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so the show is actually set up into 2 separate parts, which as a GM by episode 2, I might really hate myself for doing this. So we're going to start the show with the Ascended, and we will be doing more of a traditional fetch quest in terms of TTRPG terminology, where they have a hero's journey. They're trying to go from point A to point B, and everything they learn along the way. But it'll be Kollok style, so there'll be a lot of weird stuff that happens in between.
Yeah.
And then we'll have a break mid-show, and then when we come back, it'll be our legacy cast, and it will be completely different. And you know, that's the other thing too. I've been role playing with those people for years now, and it's exciting to have a new group go on that fetch quest. Having a group I've been playing with for years, it was like, well, what can we do that challenges us as performers and storytellers? And we had a lot of fun performing the episode Dreams in season 2, which was an episode that entirely took place in the mind of a 15-year-old boy who was dying. And this was his kind of like dying thoughts. And because he was a huge fan of the movie Akira Kurosawa's Dreams, his interpretation of that and the life around him. And we had a lot of fun doing that as a group. So we thought, what if we tried to build an entire season that has a similar vibe, that takes place entirely in the subconscious? So the legacy cast will be doing their season completely in their own subconscious, exploring the last 30 years of memories to try to unlock their involvement in everything that happened that led to the world as it is. They won't know that they're trapped in their subconscious when the show starts, though. So we have to go through a couple episodes of even discovering what it means to be exploring your own memory, and how much memory is a lie in and of itself.
If that doesn't sound like Kollok to a T,
yeah, right.
I don't know what would. So Bella, coming into this, were you aware of the first 2 seasons of Kollok? Have you come into this fresh? Kind of what was your take on this weird world that has been created?
When I first talked to Zach about this, opportunity and everything, I had not seen a single episode at all. And I remember him describing it as like really dark and whatever. And I started watching it to catch up. And I remember the first episode, I'm like, oh, they're just a bunch of high school kids looking for a girl. Like, it's all good. And then like 10 episodes later, I'm like, this is an entirely different like show. Like, it moves and it
Mm-hmm.
changes, slow and fast in ways. And I definitely am super excited to be in such a weird, dark world because those kind of things really interest me. And I do feel like watching season 1 and 2, like I didn't watch it when it happened. I watched it after I became part of this. And even now, I still have like 6 episodes left. So I've been like slowly catching up.
And you didn't have to do that.
I know, but it's like I want the lore. Like I want to just know things.
She's
And it's a great show. Like I actually really enjoy watching it. So it's cool to see how it works and like I don't know. I can just tell this season's gonna be. It's gonna be
yeah.
good.
So are you anticipating? Are you already trying to kind of guess a little bit of where things might direct? With how much versus kind of how how far you've seen the show travel in the past and how strange it's gotten with talking squirrels and memory loss.
um, I don't think I'll be able to guess with how Zach's brain works. It's just like something else, something else. Like every episode, it's like another entirely different concept. So I mean, it's like I know I definitely want to like be able to do some wild actions, but I also don't want to get my character killed or anything like that. So I'm trying to tread water very carefully and just like
Well, I
stand at
think
the.
this will be another really interesting part about this season is the kids on bike system, which we use as
Mm-hmm.
kind of our rule set, and we modify and adapt to match the world of Kollok. Uh, Everything fails and succeeds on a sliding system. So a difference of 6 is a critical hit or fail. So something's a difficulty of 12, they roll a 6, that's a critical failure. And combat in this system is extremely shied against because it's not like a combat system. You don't get
Mm-hmm.
rewarded for combat. You either pass or fail. You don't get to modify that to a certain point, but it's very narrative based. I'll always do what's best for the narrative in those moments based on the result of the die roll. But this is the first time we've ever tried to have in a system like this a group that grew up fighting, has skills in fighting, and their first idea will be to fight. Now they were a militia group growing up, so they're very skilled. So for me to make it as dangerous as it needs to be to feel like a kids on bikes kind of system, the dangers they're being presented with now have to be much larger than just other militia groups. They have to be things way outside their realm of control.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so they're in just as much danger as a group of kids running up to, somebody who happens to have a gun. Now it's going to be a group of trained militia fighters having to face something that's way outside of their reach and grasp.
Wow, yeah, that um, I mean that sounds difficult to plan out.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
no CRs for that. Um,
No, and you have to be careful because we've had players in this world though, end up permanently paralyzed, dead. So it's never the intention to, I want to make it really clear too. We play a lot with the idea of um, the meta of a GM. So much of this show, despite how when we're in the moment, I'm giving some of this stuff because I can tell by the way you're talking to me that you participate in watching TTRPGs, so
yeah.
you understand some of the. Yeah, I can tell just by it's like, oh, you're a fellow nerd. Okay, we got
Yeah.
this.
No,
So
I'm a GM myself. I'm playing in
okay.
a different campaign. Watched CR Dimension 20. Started watching Kollok. I've
Nice.
been loving it so far. But yeah.
So a lot of the show is a meta on TTRPGs. It's playing with the idea of we've been doing this for years. We have things to say. We might as well say them. But then in the show, the world takes itself. We don't take ourselves seriously, but the world does.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't want our players to meta what they know in the world, but the world itself is kind of meta on
Mm-hmm.
TTRPGs. I mean, in season 1 and 2, our players are inhabitants of the god of chaos. If that's not a TTRPG group, I don't know what is. It's setting up knowing stuff's not going to go the way I want,
Mm-hmm.
we always have that to fall back on. But the driver as a character is playing off the meta of a TTRPG. And though the driver is always going to act antagonistic or a unreliable narrator to the players themselves, as me as a real person, as a GM, I'm never going to like kill off a character without them consenting to that or wanting that as a way for their characters to go. And I try to set up really strong boundaries with the players to say, like, how far are you willing to go? And then I have opportunities to surprise them within those boundaries. But I'm not going to play the evil. We'll play it for the cameras, the evil GM thing, but I'm not actually going to do that to somebody.
Yeah, that's just the importance of session 0, as always.
Right.
Knowing those bounds. And that character of the traveler that you play, the kind of Twin Peaks-esque Twilight Zone narrator, is a fantastic one. It's really great to see you in that role. How difficult is that to keep up when shenanigans are going on around you? And
it's actually easier for me.
Yeah.
And this is like, I'm always looking for tools to help. And this is something I haven't had a chance to talk to Bella too much about yet, but I will on our session 0 on Thursday, probably. I'm not a performer. I'm not a trained improviser. I'm a storyteller. I'm a filmmaker. I like to produce things more than I like to be in things. And weirdly, I have to find what works for my brain and the way my brain works. And giving myself a character that I'm inhabiting allows me to sit outside the game a little bit, be a little bit more patient, and present an idea of calm and collected and in control. While in my actual brain is like, oh shit, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? Oh. And if I'm just GMing as myself, I'm not as confident and I'm not as able to control the scene and do what I want for the story. So by playing a character, it allows me to kind of put that wall up and present something that keeps it in the tonal range that I want. And it's hard because sometimes I recognize that it might not always be the best thing. Sometimes the driver is a little too monotone for what is needed in that moment. And I'll try to bring NPCs in to help to balance that. But for me, it's actually easier to stay in the driver zone and present the story as I need to. Whereas if I'm just being myself, I'm Tibby. You know, like that's me. I'm Tibby. That's young me. So I'm more likely to end up like that, and I will panic. So it actually helps me a lot to create a character who's very calm, collected, and just tell myself, that's the voice. That's the thing that I'm going to do. Like I'm just going to stay right there.
Like the on-screen director, you're still guiding the world around you.
Yeah, and that's how I treat it too. I think I treat it more like a live producer, which I have to, and I think that that's an important clarification for these kinds of shows. Is we've always told ourselves, if someone's watching this, and especially if they're paying to watch it, if they're subscribing, if they're supporting, we owe it to them to give them the best quality product that we possibly can. And we're always trying to go a little bit higher and a little bit better. We owe it to them. And I've never wanted to just be a group of friends sitting around and playing a game. That's not what I want. That's okay if other people, that's what they want. But what I want is, if you're paying for this, I want this to be entertainment, and I want to provide you with entertainment that's worthy of your dollar. And I will work really hard to try to make you feel like you got something out of it that is valuable to you.
Yeah, definitely. Like the same way that a home game might be filled with minis and figures, or it might swing the other way and be entirely theater of the mind. This is your way of presenting what you want the viewers to see. So, I mean, the cast for this new season of Kollok is jam-packed. We've got Ethan Nestor, Crank Gameplays, Abria Iyengar, Daniel Radford, Elise Willems, Bella yourself. Kind of what was the story of kind of pulling them into the world of Kollok as well? Were they people that you previously knew, people that you thought, like, I would love to have that person in my game?
It all depends on who exactly, but for a lot of the Ascended, we did casting, and I probably interviewed over 150 people. Wow. It was a lot of people, we put out some Twitter calls. We actually did some actual casting calls on some casting sites, and with people like Ethan, I've been working with him for a while now. He was in season 2, and Ethan really came to me and said that, after Unis Honest, he wanted to do something that was more creative and felt more like creatively fulfilling. So he's come on board as an executive producer to kind of help make sure that those goals of ours are being hit. And I think it's just something he really inside wants to do to prove that he can do a lot more than just drinking pee on YouTube. And for people like Bella and Elise, it's just interviewing and finding people that I think had the right sensibilities and the right interests and had interesting things to say. That's really important to me, in that as a live play, you need to put together people who have varying life experiences, varying ideas, ways of thought, because that's going to give you a better show. We're basically creating a writer's room. In any writer's room, you're going to want some very varied opinions and different ideas of how the world works to get a better product. And if I just cast my friends, I'm going to end up in a one-track lane, and it's not going to be as good of a show. So really wanted to pull together people who all had very different ideas and ways of thought to make our story much stronger.
As I know that you just said that your session 0 was happening on Thursday.
Yeah.
Has the cast kind of had a meet and greet so far? Bella,
Yes.
maybe are there like specific cast members that you're like really looking forward to working across from, or you maybe even think that your character and their character might have differing opinions or some kind of a schism?
Honestly, I feel like this cast is so good. Every character I feel like I'm going to have a different dynamic with. I feel like Rose's character is very much like little sister to me eventually. Like, I'm definitely going to try to turn her into a degenerate as well. And stop.
Yeah, she was raised in a Christian cult, so she's going to be, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
that's good fun.
which I love. And C-Dubs, which is Danielle's character, I feel like we might have some real
might go to
beef.
blows.
Yeah. I'm excited. I think it's gonna be.
Yeah, you said little sister vibe, and I thought, oh, that's really sweet. No, wait, corruption. Never mind. Regardless, I think it's gonna be fun.
A lot of great moments.
No, they've definitely been getting together and talking, and we did it wasn't necessarily a session 0, but to me it was really important. We for promotional material, we rented a barn out in the middle of nowhere and just spent 3 to 4 days taking pictures, getting to know each other, and letting everybody kind of start to feel out their characters, getting in costume and going out and taking pictures. And even though I'm not getting a chance to talk to them as much, I think it's really important and good for them to all just start inhabiting that character and hanging out with each other and seeing what it would be like to share the same space with each other.
That's awesome. And Bella, did you know the Kids on Bike system beforehand? Do you have a history in role-playing games?
So I've done 2 TTRPGs, maybe 3 before this one. So I'm pretty new. I've only been doing them for about a year, and I've only done them online, and I've never used Kids on Bikes. I probably don't even know the names of the systems I use, because I just would tell them to just tell me what to do.
Yeah.
And they'd be like, when we do this, you roll and you type this into the Roll20 website. And so
okay. to be really clear, I prefer that as a GM for this show. Like when I'm casting people, I am biased towards people telling me I haven't really done that much, but I'm really into these things, because what we do is so different. I know from history, if I bring somebody in who's been playing D&D for 15 years, it's going to be more work for me to deprogram them and to get them to think about, this is not a per action reward system. This is, it's a purely narrative based system. We're doing live theater. The dice are happening to inform what direction the story goes, but it's not a game.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest differentiator. It's not a game that you're winning. It's not a game that there's an end goal to. It's just not a game at all. It's a live improvisational story where the dice happen to be giving you improv cues as if it was an audience member shouting words out.
Yeah, definitely. I'm somewhat new to the kids on bike system, but the ability to just have people sit around a table and the dice really inform so little,
Hmm.
and it just really gives, as opposed to the game getting a chance to like shine or the game systems shining.
Yeah.
Kids on Bikes has been absolutely fantastic for building up that narrative and the kind of thing that you can put on a podcast and crank out for a road trip, and you don't even want to be driving anywhere. You just want to have an excuse to have Kollok playing.
Yeah, I like systems that get out of their own way, that have no kind of ego about themselves as a system. I know for the Phobos saga, we started with Tin Candles as a system, and then we moved to Kids on Bikes because it just allowed for more long form,
Mm-hmm.
whereas Tin Candles is very clearly like one and done, you know. But I like how both those systems are they're enabling you as a performer on how to bring out the best in your performance, but as a system itself, you can do as much or as little as you want. And we have direct line of communication with Hunters Entertainment and the writers for Kids on Bikes, and we've gotten their blessing to change whatever we want,
Mm-hmm.
use as little as we want, and that was important to me too, to reach out to them before the show even started a couple years ago and let them know, like, hey, we're using your system, but also we're not using your system, and we're probably barely going to bring up any of the rules at all. Is that okay? And they were very cool with it.
That's awesome. I guess is there any plan to release the Kollok modification or?
um, I don't know what I'm allowed to say.
Mm-hmm.
So what I will say is, if I had more hands and time, it would already have been done.
Okay.
Here's what I'm allowed to say. I am the only reason that probably hasn't happened yet. It's
Okay.
my fault and my fault alone.
Were there any other systems ever in contention, or after working on 10 Candles and moving and trying
Yeah.
out?
Yeah, I looked at a lot of systems, and running is one of those things, I don't like talk about too much, but running Hyper RPG, we've had hundreds upon hundreds of systems come through our doors,
Mm-hmm.
and I've seen hundreds upon hundreds of GMs run them. I've talked to them. I've sat at a lot of those tables. So we kind of auditioned a lot of them, and we did some play tests as well. And at the end of the day, it was just the one. My type of storytelling really was drawn to the sliding scale system of success and failure. Of
Mm-hmm.
you succeed if you roll the same or one higher, but it's only a little bit. And how, because that always is enabling just more role play.
Mm-hmm.
It's giving that idea of like, okay, yes, in the story as the GM, I have to know they succeeded by 2. That's a success, but not really. And there's some other complications that come with that. Or if you fail by 2, it's not the end of the roll. You didn't just lose. It's a failure, but there's more that happens, which is kind of my entire style of GMing for Kollok. It's not yes and like improv, it's no but. It's create conflict by saying no, but never just putting a hard line down. It's
Mm-hmm.
saying no and then understanding, but this also, and we need to keep moving forward. So we're creating conflict and drama, but without creating a hard stop.
Yeah. So the door doesn't shut on a player, but it might
Mm-hmm.
be that you immediately encounter something on the other side of the door.
Right, right, right. Or the door slams on your hand and it's you're now your hand's swollen and unable to move. Yeah, that kind of thing.
Kind of going back to the story a bit, how much will people need to know the original 2 seasons of Kollok versus hopping into this new season?
If I'm doing my job right, none.
Okay.
The idea is, since we're going to AMC Fear HQ, we want new people to be able to join and be like, what is this? And I like stories where I'm just presented with them.
Mm-hmm.
I love weird manga. I love like weird anime and manga and I feel like as an entire media kind of culture, manga is much more good. It's much better at just presenting you with the world and being like, you'll figure it out in issue 100. Like, just keep going. Eventually, you'll have answers to these
Mm-hmm.
things, but that's not why you're
Mm-hmm.
here. You're here for the story, not. And as Western cultures, I think we're really like, we want to know everything. We want to know, like, well, why? And then if it doesn't work, it's a plot hole. That doesn't interest me as much. And so and that's why we make it a mystery show instead of
Mm-hmm.
a plot hole. It's just you just aren't privy to that
Right.
information.
It hasn't been filled in yet.
It hasn't been filled in yet, and I haven't thought of the answer yet. So if I'm doing my job right, anybody can jump in. They'll be able to enjoy the show right from the start. But immediately they have access to more information. They can hop onto our Discord and get a brief breakdown of everything that's led to the world as it is. And they could create a character and they can start role playing in that world. So the information is there if they want it. If they don't, hopefully we're telling a good spooky story that keeps them interested and keeps them entertained.
Yeah, that's excellent. I mean, for a mystery series, that idea of the people who are really into the mystery can go out on their own time and, they have something to dig into between the shows.
It's like what I really, really want, but also what I really, really never have enough time to fill what they want. Like I'm always trying, and then people they consume it faster than I can create it.
Oh, definitely. And yet, you mentioned that this season will be on Fear HQ as opposed to the Hyper RPG Twitch channel.
Yep.
So fill me in a little bit. What is that relationship with AMC, with Fear HQ, and the hand that you've had in that the whole time that people may not be aware of?
So as a production company, I mean, we have the shows that we've made that people might know of, like Power Rangers, and we show ran D&D Live this year, and we helped G4 do some TTRPGs. We operate as a production company primarily on the back end. That's how we keep the lights on and keep getting to make fun, silly shows. Is we're usually just producing for people, and we've been producing Fear HQ for AMC for almost 2 years now. And when we were looking to bring Kollok back, we knew we couldn't do it without more financial help. I mean, it's our bottom end, and this is another thing with like TTRPGs, a lot of people just assume it's just people hanging out, and like our minimum amount to make the show is around $500,000. Like that's the minimum to get 20 episodes out. And we've done some fundraising on our own. We'll be doing fundraising during the season. Whatever we don't make is just a loss we take in on our end, but we're ready for that. When we started pitching around looking for more funding, AMC was the most natural, like, hey, we've been working, we've kind of shown you all that we're capable. Are you willing to take a chance on us? And they have been an awesome, awesome partner. Like everything you would hope where you work for another company for years and that you're proving to them you're worthy of this next step, that actually worked. They were like, you know what, you're right. You guys have done a great job. Let's see what we can do together, and giving us a little more creative handles on things. And it's been a great relationship. They're licensing it from us, so it's still a Hyper RPG property that they're licensing for the channel. And it's been an awesome collaboration so far, and it's been great to have other people at an administrative level helping me keep track of everything. Like that has been awesome. I needed that help really bad. Malika and I both really needed the help of another company being able to be like PR, things like that.
Yeah.
Like we gotta. How come you guys have never done PR for the show? And I'm like, who's gonna do it? Who's got the time?
Oh, that's awesome. So yeah, I mean, it sounds like AMC has been, fantastically helpful.
Yeah. We wouldn't be talking without them. Like that's the truth.
What kind of, one of the really cool things about Kollok, the first 2 seasons, is the amount of prop work and effects, and both visual and audio. So cool to just really draw the viewer at home in. Will there be much of a change with AMC's involvement? Are we, should fans be expecting like, more of the same, a step up?
Yeah, step up. I mean, we built an LED wall in our studio, and we have Unreal developers building custom interactive backgrounds for the show. So yeah, step up for sure.
Wow.
We've updated all of our cameras. I'm trying to figure out a way to say this to not come off like a huge jerk. I'll put it in relation to my own content. I'm bored of the typical TTRPG format that I've been doing for years. I don't want other people to think that what they're doing isn't good enough, because everyone sets their own standards. But I've been now like launching Critical Role and having that explode. Like in some ways, I felt was like it exploded before it had matured. And from a media standpoint, it almost got too big too fast. Not to say that they don't deserve any bit of what they've got, because they do. More from my end as a producer, from a producing standpoint, I want to have more time to like finesse and figure out like what is actually here for the future of this medium. And that got so big so fast, we had to stop messing with it. And then it starts getting emulated, and then we all are doing the exact same thing. And I don't like that for media, especially when you're in the wild west of Twitch. There are no rules.
Yeah.
There are no rules. So Kollok is kind of started as an experiment on that. What can we do? How do we hold audience retention? At what point is it too far? And luckily we haven't got there yet. And if anything, the only thing holding us back is ourselves, and we're not thinking broad enough. You know, we've done episodes that were a town council meeting where it's 40 people in a room role playing as Discord members of the community, like it's a real town council meeting. And we shot it on VHS, and we did it live. And we thought, okay, this is where they're going to jump ship. This is where they're going to be like, this is too fucking weird. We're out. Like, and they ate it up. And it was a lot of people's favorite episode, because at the end of the day, what was important to them was the characters they made are being played by some of their favorite actors. And we had printed off their entire history of things they've said in the Discord so the actors could get into character, and had them even prep questions they were going to ask at that council meeting so the actors could read their questions. So that was what was important. It wasn't that it's a group of people sitting around a table rolling dice. It was making a show that got them involved, made them feel like they were a part of it. There's always going to be a place for shows that are a group of friends sitting around a table rolling dice. You have to be very like frank from a producing standpoint. It's really hard for me to pull the trigger on stuff like that unless you are the most interesting, charismatic, and famous people I've ever met. You got to have a lot of pull to make that interesting. And I'm not that interesting. I am not an influencer. We have to come up with other ways to get you engaged, get you paying attention. We know that most people watch Twitch as a second screen experience. They've got other windows open. Belle is an active Twitch streamer and a Twitch viewer. I'm guessing she often has 2 to 3 windows open while she's watching somebody. And it's a second screen experience. So I'm always thinking, how do I pull you in? How do I create a visual effect or an audio effect that makes you stop what you're doing on that second screen? Be like, wait a minute, what's going on over here? What weird thing is happening? Why am I being back?
Why does Zach have a third eye in his forehead?
Right,
what's going on?
Like, anything we can do to try to regain your attention, which, you know, for a 3-hour-long show it's hard. It's hard to keep that attention. So you can expect a lot more of that this season. We have a bigger team, so we have more stuff that we get to try by me making more people work to do stuff. You know, we are working so hard on just making the basic tech happening that it might take us a little bit to get to some of the more like weird props. But the basic tech that we're using is so advanced from what we were doing in season 1 and 2.
It's already gonna look
I think for the audience, they're gonna be like, holy shit, it's a new set, new table, new screen, new everything. I have my Alex, our composer, is composing an entirely new soundtrack for the show too. So that's being made as we speak. So it'll be new everything.
Cool. And so from the size of the cast, will we be expecting kind of to have a certain number of people per session with people swapping in and out? Like, would we normally see 6 people at the table, 4 people at the table?
It'll typically be well, we're even going about this in a different way. This is, again, me making things more difficult on us just because I'm bored. Our Ascended cast, because they're going on a fetch quest journey, we're shooting a lot of it in the wide, and we're shooting it at a 2:8:5 kind of aspect ratio. So we're presenting it even in a wider, you know, more like your Lawrence of Arabia. They're going on a journey. So let's film it that way. So we're using more slow dolly camera movements with rack focuses. We're going to be shooting a lot of it in a wide to help get you into that mindset of this is a group going on a journey. So we can expect 5 to 6 people at a table on those wider shots, more 2 shots, people together. But when we switch over to our legacy cast, because it's all in their subconscious, we're shooting it in 4:3, all single shots. You'll never see them together in a wide. It's all isolated, and it's all playing off the idea that they're alone and they don't have each other anymore.
They're stuck in their minds. With the show being through the Fear HQ Twitch channel now, would it be still on Hyper RPG that we'll see the VODs? or will they be
No,
elsewhere?
the VODs will get uploaded to Fear HQ's YouTube immediately.
Okay.
But we another way that we've updated our production is we will be taking raw footage from every single camera and re-editing it and repackaging it. And I can't say exactly yet where that will go because there's
Okay.
a couple different things on the table. But know that the VODs will go straight up for the live show, and then we have the opportunity to have the multi-track audio and video re-edited and repurposed for other means.
Wow, that sounds intense. And then finally, where will people be able to watch the show? And where can they find more about you two, Zach and Bella?
Well, the show will be live every Monday night at 6 p.m. Pacific time on twitch.tv/fearhq. We really think people should watch it live to be a part of that experience. It's made to be a live show. You're always going to be missing a little something if you do it later. So try to see it live. And you can just find me at hyper_RPG. And
that's starting Valentine's Day, correct?
Yeah, next Monday. Yep, 14th.
Ooh, it's close.
7 days.
Exactly a week.
Oh boy.
And Bella, where can people find you?
I'm Yellowspoongirl on everything, and that's about it.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for sitting with me today. This has been a super great chat, and I'm really looking forward to checking out
Thank you so much.
the first
Yeah,
episode next week.
Yeah, thank you so much, Andrew. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, it was nice talking.